Hey guys, I got to admit to a guilty pleasure of mine. Typically, after I do my daily show, I like to watch a basketball podcast. And I'm not really a huge basketball fan. This is what's really weird. I do not watch basketball, but I listen to a podcast because it's just mindless. And you hear about statistics, 3-point shooting, zone defense, rebounds, and it deals with the Denver Nuggets. Denver was my home city for many years, and they won the world championship last year, and they have like one of the best players in the world, Jokic. He's a big white Serbian guy. He's won the MVP a couple times. It's okay, it's just a way to get away from politics for the most part. I don't like all the Black Lives Matter, racial politics, and all that. I just like it's kind of a fantasy escape. I'm eating my lunch and I just have it in the background. And I've learned a lot. The guy I listen to is extremely knowledgeable about basketball, a young guy. But in a recent broadcast, he brought up something one of the players said, Michael Porter Jr., he makes a lot of money. He's not really that good, but he makes a lot of money. And this guy, when he was, I think his name's Ryan, he said, "Oh, well, I'm going to address the comments," he said, and he was just real upset about it. I'm like, "Well, what are these comments? I have to listen to this." And so I found it, and this gets into women's basketball and the whole politically correct culture and how it gets into really a religious type of thing where people can't articulate something. It's just, oh, that sounds like heresy. So let's look at the source, what Michael Porter Jr. said. He was doing this in a broadcast, and here he is, right here, the guy in purple. Let's listen to him.
They're very talented, but so is a famous ping pong player.
All right, this is the background. They ask him about women's basketball, the Women's Basketball Association, and Michael Porter Jr. saying, "Yeah, the women are very talented, but so's like a ping pong champion." There's no doubt about that.
They're just as talented as a like the best ping pong player is just as talented as the best basketball player. That doesn't mean they're going to get paid the same because
Right. Because they
it's
play
what
ping pong.
it's what the people want to watch. You know what I mean? So, as much as I understand females wanting the same treatment as men basketball players, it's a different sport. People they're not packing out the arenas. Obviously, their TV deals aren't the same.
Right. And it's not the same because women and men, despite all the political correctness and social justice warriors and what you see in Hollywood, I don't think the top women's basketball team of all stars could beat a boys' high school basketball team. I really don't think that would happen. We've seen this many times in soccer, where like the champion team in soccer for the country will play a high school soccer team and they get beat like 15-0. It's just real embarrassing. Despite the propaganda that like sex is just a social construct, it isn't. It's a biological reality. That's why we have a men's league and a women's league. Otherwise, why not just have one league, right? If you want pure equality, say we're not going to have a men's league or a women's league. We're just going to have the league, and the best players can play. Right? They don't do that because if they did that, there'd be no women in the league, and women want to be able to play basketball against other women. That's why they have it. And what Michael Porter Jr. said here is true. Most people don't want to watch women's sports for whatever reason. It doesn't mean that the women are bad or, people hate women. People just typically want to see the best basketball, and that's done by men, and that draws the ratings, that draws the TV contracts, it sells out the stadiums, which allows men basketball players to make millions of dollars. Like Michael Porter Jr., he probably makes 30 million a year, something obscene like that. It's not even that good, but that's the reason is because it's a form of entertainment. It's like an actor makes millions of dollars because he brings in a lot of people to the theater, and that's the way basketball players get paid. Women basketball players, they don't get paid as much as men, not because of sexism. It's just that not as many people want to watch the game. Some do, and that's cool, but it's not, you just don't get, you don't get paid as much. Hey, I'm the same way. I do this thing on YouTube. I don't get the views like say a Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson makes millions a year. And I can say, it's not fair. He makes so much more than I do. Well, he gets a bigger audience. So that's just natural.
So as much as I advocate for women and kind of the equality of the respect of their craft and all those things, I mean, you can't pay them the same thing, you know, but I do feel like there should be a little way to make a little bit more money for them because they are very talented.
Yeah, I think the big thing, obviously, when you're thinking about negotiations, labor unions, and different things like that, I don't believe there's any woman that believes she should be paid as a man gets paid. It's more about the revenue share. It's more about the percentage. And I think those.
Well, I would disagree with them. A lot of people think women basketball players should make as much as men. So many people, they do believe that, and they think this is a form of sexism.
Those things play into it. And then the other side of it is treatment, you know, within their own organizations. Like they're never like, they don't.
Well, it's not as exciting.
No, it's not as exciting.
It's not as exciting basketball.
Yeah, you're not.
They got to lower the rims. I would watch a girl coming down the lane on another. I would watch that. They need to lower the rims.
Actually.
Yeah. So what Michael Porter Jr. is saying, because women usually can't dunk the basketball, what Michael Porter Jr. can. He's saying in order to make it a little bit maybe more exciting for women's basketball, they should play with lower rims. That's what they do like in elementary school for kids. They put the hoops lower so you can make it in easier. Maybe they need to do that. But I don't, when I see this, I don't see a big women hating type of thing here or a tirade, misogyny. I just see some rational discussion, and I don't see anything that should be that offensive. But take a look what was shown in this podcast. I'm not going to show you his whole podcast, and I don't give this guy any problems. I like him. He's got a great basketball mind, but I just found this really interesting. So let's just watch just the clip, not the whole thing here.
All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, final segment here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. There were comments made by Michael Porter on a podcast that he did with, I don't even remember who it was. Like, I'm not going to like fully address this because I don't feel comfortable fully addressing this because I don't know everything and I don't know what the context was. And
well, if you watch it, the context is obvious. It's not like some mysterious. He's acting like they were advocating genocide or something. Oh, I just don't understand the context. What are they talking about? No, they're talking, the context is why women don't make as much. Women basketball players don't make as much as men basketball players. And the answer, which is obvious, is because men draw a bigger viewership. So they get more ad revenue, they get more TV deals, they sell more tickets. So then the league makes more money and they can share more with the men players. Whereas women, it's like a graveyard. You go into the stadium. Very few people want to see women's basketball.
Just pull a clip from something, and like that can obviously have crazy ramifications because you don't have the context.
Well, we know the context. Come on, Ryan. We know the context. If you saw the clip, you know the context. It's not that. That's just an out. And I get part of it because these sports reporters, they have to be nice to the players, otherwise they don't get access. So they're in an awkward situation. I get it.
But there was a clip that was circulating around social media last night about Michael Porter talking about women's basketball and why the women's game is not as lucrative and talk about opportunities for women and whatnot.
Yeah, and I thought he made a good point.
And a little bit disappointing, obviously.
Why? What was disappointing? And so explain, Ryan. Explain what he said that was disappointing. I want to hear, because I heard this first. I didn't even hear the clip first. I heard Ryan talk about it. I'm like, well, what did he say was so disappointing?
Just because, like, Porter's playing in Breanna Stewart's shoes. Like,
I don't know who Breanna Stewart is. And I guess it's not her literal shoes. I guess she's got a shoe deal and he's playing in her shoes that she didn't design, but the company designed in her name. But that's irrelevant. I mean, what does that have to do with anything?
Her signature shoe. He has a couple sisters. His mom was Miss Basketball.
All right. So he's got sisters. His mom is Miss Basketball. Again, that's irrelevant to the point he made.
in the state that they grew up. And like Mike should have more of a better perspective than he displayed in that clip.
A better perspective. Okay, how? I would like to hear it, Ryan. So you're making a statement. Oh, I'm disappointed. I'm sighing. Maybe it's out of context, which I don't understand. That the context was there. He should have had a better perspective. Okay, at that point, I want to say, oh, well, what is your perspective? If the women's league doesn't take in as much money as a men's league, how do you expect them to pay the same salaries as men get? How do you do that? I don't know. I would like to hear it.
And that's just a little bit disappointing to see like that sort of perspective here, because like the women's game is growing, like it or not for a lot of people. The women's game is growing.
Well, that's good. Then I guess if it grows, they'll make more money, but it's still minuscule compared to the men's game.
And it's becoming better and better and better. You're getting awesome. Like Sabrina Ionescu is about to have a 3-point contest with Steph Curry over All-Star Weekend.
Well, good. And if you're saying that women are just as good as men, then because he's going to compete with Steph Curry in the 3-point shooting contest, well, then maybe there should only be one league. Get rid of the women's league, get rid of the men's league, just have it for everyone. And then women, I guess, would be half of the players if you believe in equality.
Caitlin Clark is killing people at Iowa. She's been just absolutely decimating people.
All right, and this is all irrelevant. So this isn't. This isn't. This is sort of the argument. You could have some hack up there singer, let's say like Madonna makes like $1 billion because she sings somewhat okay. She did it back in the day and she showed her tits. And meanwhile, you have like a brilliant musician, maybe with a local orchestra that's so much more talented than Madonna, where she knows like 2 or 3 chords, but just a brilliant musician. But Madonna makes like $1 billion. Another guy hardly makes anything. It's not always based on how good you are. So even if these players are good, which they're really not compared to men, but let's say even if they are, it's irrelevant to the discussion. They're not bringing in the views.
And the women's game, like, look, it may not be for everyone, but the fact that it is for some people, like, you shouldn't demean it for that reason. Like,
I don't see how Michael Porter Jr. demeaned it for women. He said, in fact, he's very positive of women's sports and women basketball players. If you listen to the clip, he was just saying, obviously, they don't get paid as much because they don't draw the same size of audience.
it's unfortunate that that is where that perspective kind of came from. I'm not sure exactly what Mike was going for with that, but
well, I do. What's complicated about it? He said they don't make as much money as men because they don't draw as big as an audience. It's not that complicated. You don't have to have context. It's not like some mysterious thing. It's just obvious.
look, he's got to be better. I assume that there will be
What do you mean he's got to be better? In what way does he have to be better?
like, I'll probably ask him about it on Sunday.
All right. And we'll stop it there. But the thing I found interesting about this is, and you see this, and I don't want to pick on Ryan because he's a really sharp guy, but this is how you have in general, and I don't know his politics, but probably left wing because you have to be in, the media. It reminds me much of religion where you can't really defend your position intellectually. You just hear something that sounds heretical because the politically correct position, or now the social justice position, is women basketball players should make just as much as men. And the only reason they don't is because of sexism, men, the patriarchy is holding women down. And well, that's probably not the case. The case is that at least Michael Porter Jr. is arguing they're not drawing as many people to watch the games. But it's interesting when someone, all they do is kind of clutch their pearls, a leftist, and they sigh, say how they're disappointed and he's got to be better and all that type of stuff. But they don't really refute his point at all. They don't even address it. And I'm like, okay, well, address this point then. I mean, you could say, well, no, that's not true. Women draw as much as men do. I don't think that's true, but that'd be one way to refute it. Or I don't know. You could say, well, even if they don't draw as much, they should somehow get paid as much as men. But then I would ask, well, then who's going to pay him? Ryan, are you going to pay him, or who's going to pay him? Because you're losing money then, because how you run a business is you pay your employees based on the revenue you get in. And if you're paying your employees more than the revenue you get in, eventually you go bankrupt. So how does this work? And that wasn't addressed. It's just kind of you clutch your pearls, you sigh, you're saying you're disappointed because he said something that was vaguely heretical and he needs to do better. And I'm not really trying to pick on Ryan because I like his podcast, but this just shows the whole philosophy out there of the left. In many cases, they can't really defend their positions. They just know, ooh, it sounds bad. And I don't know why, but I'll just sigh and just say, oh, that's horrible. He's got to be better. And being better always means being more left wing. You notice that? Be better. That's what they always mean. It's never be more right wing. It's always be more left wing. And Michael Porter Jr., he's probably not a Republican or anything, or I don't think he's a deep thinker at all. I mean, he bounces the basketball. But the point he made was reasonable. And Ryan couldn't refute the point. He's just got to be better. Talk to you guys later.